Hi, everyone, and welcome to this live webinar about the community-based project CoronaTracker. My name is Helena Barmer, and I will be moderating this event today, hosted by People in Data. Before we begin, and before I introduce the team from CoronaTracker, I want to briefly go through the structure of this webinar. I have also written this in the chat, so you can see this. We ask you to please keep your microphones muted throughout the webinar to avoid background noise and to not disturb the speakers. This webinar will be divided into 4 parts with 3 presentations by the team from CoronaTracker, and the last part will consist of a Q&A, questions and answers section. So if you have any questions, just write them in the chat and I will make sure to ask them for you at the end of the webinar. And it would be of great help if you could just write a Q&A before and then your questions so I can find them easily. Today, we will hear 3 presentations about the CoronaTracker project from Dr. Lau, Cher Han, Seng, and Dominic Ligot. Our first speaker, Dr. Lau Cher Han, is the project leader of CoronaTracker, and he will be giving us a presentation about how the CoronaTracker project started and where it is heading. He is a chief data scientist and currently the CEO of Ligot. A very warm welcome to Dr. Lau Cher Han. Dr. Lau Cher Han, you can please go ahead with your presentation. I think there might be some kind of audio problem, so let us just wait for a minute and see if he will get this up to speed. So in the meantime, we can actually say when Dr. Lau Cher Han just checking his audio, so maybe we can say hi to the other ones in the team. It's lead full stack engineer, Seng, and lead data analyst, Dominic Ligot. Hi, are you with me and is your audio working today?
Hi.
Hi, Seng, Dominic.
Hello.
Hi, Dominic, how are you? So we just have to wait for Dr. Lau Cher Han to see if his audio is working, or I'm not sure why. Let us just wait for a few more minutes and see if you can get it.
I'm here.
Oh, good. So are you ready to start your presentation?
Sure.
Wonderful.
Do we have to wait for more people to come or we can just go ahead?
I think we can go ahead. So this webinar will be recorded today, and we can also share that recording and get people up to speed that way.
All right.
Yes. Warmly welcome, Dr. Lau Cher Han.
Right. Is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, good evening, everyone. Yeah, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. All right, this is Dr. Lau. Today, I'm going to talk to you about CoronaTracker and in particular, the part of managing and responding to crisis situations using data science and with a real implementations of how do we track the coronavirus 2019. So a little bit of background about myself. I'm currently a chief data scientist at a company called UCAN Technologies, and we run a training company called a training brand called Ligot. and Lead is one of the major sponsor of the CoronaTracker program together with Seralytics, and where Dominic will give you a little bit more intro later on. For those of you in Malaysia, I was the state advisor for Johor and Selangor State, which are the two major states in Malaysia in smart city and data automations. Apart from that, I'm an in-house trainer for companies like Intel, HP, Standard Chartered. So across different industries from um, semicon, banking, insurance, so to help them to train their data scientists and engineers, and to help a lot of companies to transition themselves into data science or using data to make decisions. And I'm a founding director of Magic Academy. If you haven't or you've never heard of Magic, it's actually a startup accelerator focusing on high growth, highly scalable startup in Southeast Asia. So before that, I have about 20 years in software and web development. Most of the time, I'll be based in Melbourne, Australia, but I travel around to Southeast Asia and to give talks and conduct trainings a lot. And before that, I was a co-founder of Happen.com and also head of engineering at Hero Boyfriend, so two startups. And then I work at Microsoft E-Research Center and also Fairfax Media. So just to give you a little bit of background about myself, and so that it gives you a bit of context, you understand how it actually gets started and what are my background. And let's talk about the story of CoronaTracker and what motivates me to build that. If you guys remember, right? So January 25th, that is sort of like the point where people start to talk about coronavirus, especially those that happens in China. So this is the very first versions of dashboard that's available online. Now today there are a lot of other similar dashboards out there, but this was the very first one where it was from Johns Hopkins University. So they built this dashboard to show people on a map views and to show people about the total number of deaths, total number of recovery, and of course total number of confirmed cases. This snapshot I took it a couple of days ago, and then what happened was that I was really struggling to learn more, to get more information from these dashboards. So it's good that it gives you an indicator about which area is a hotspot, but that's about it, right? And a number of cases. But we when we consume information, we usually want to know more about the news development, like a little bit more details about what happens. So there are a couple of things that I wish that can be better with the JHU map. First one is the information presented is too high level. Now, given the drop in storage price and the increasing awareness of using data analytics to make decisions, dashboard is no longer stranger to most people. But there are a lot of other tools like Power BI, Tableau, Google Data Studios, and even just Excel. Right, it can help us to build dashboards to keep track of all those statistics that you have seen. But you should realize that those information, they are structured data, they are very high level, and they are aggregated summarized version of data. So be it in the case of coronavirus or be it in the case of business use case, right? It's good, but it's not enough. Right? It's too high level. So I wish to have access to more fine grain data, and especially if I can massage it on a daily basis or weekly basis. So that'll be the first problem. And the second thing that I wish it can be better, as a data scientist, right? You know how much we are addicted to getting data. We're basically just a data eating monsters. Even large, huge companies, right? Like Facebook or Google, they're just not satisfied and not contented with the amount of data they have access to. So they'll always mine more data or harvest more data from you. Especially at today's situations, storage is cheap, computing power is cheap. So definitely we want to try different ways to gather more data to help us to understand the big picture of the entire projects, entire coronavirus development. right? And the third one is unable to keep track of story development. So if you combine point one and point two, you realize that what I really want to do is I want to be able to go to open an app, open a web applications, and then to look at the story development. I want to know when it first started, everything is about China, right? We know that it started in Wuhan and it spread to the neighboring cities, and people start to travel out of China. Some people, uh, some some other nationalities that they reside in China, and then they got sent back to their home country. But that's about it. Now we are currently at phase 2 of battling with coronavirus, which it makes story tracking, the ability to track story development even more important, because you will easily lost count about how many new cases in Iran today, how many new cases in South Korea today, what happened to the Grand Princess, is there any correlations between Grand Princess and Diamond Princess, and what are the other cruises are doing, for example. So we really want to be able to collect information about news data, and to keep track of the story development. So as a data scientist, right, as a startup person, what to do when you are not happy with something? Of course, we just go ahead and change it, right? And that's where I start to gather. I started off asking for help from Facebook and LinkedIn. That's where we gather the other team members to join us and help. So the first thing to do is we're going to build a product, right? If we were to treat a problem seriously, then we shouldn't just build a dashboard. A lot of dashboards out there, but what I had in mind is something that's beyond dashboard. Later on, Dominic from the research team will tell you a lot more about the rationale behind the research and how this project is a little bit different from the other projects, because it has become more meaningful as a research-backed project rather than just a one-off project. So in long term, we will also we're also planning to hand this project over to organizations or like WHO. So the very first version of the product is something like this. So what I had in mind is map is a given, right? People want to know which area is the hotspot, but we also want to be able to keep track of the outbreak of the trend over time, and we want to be able to build different visualizations that help us to tell a story. Yeah, we want to know what is happening around the world. How does the virus travel? I always believe that information travel faster than anything, right? Information travel faster than earthquakes. Information travel faster than volcano eruption. Information travel faster than AIDS or dengue fever, and of course, it travel faster than coronavirus. So if information can be disseminated at a more efficient way, then we are in a good position. We have a high chance, a human has a high chance to beat the virus on time. So on the left hand side is the dashboard, our own version of the dashboard, and on your right hand side is the our homepage. So we have trending news, we have number of cases, and the very first version allow you to search and select the countries that you want to read about the statistics and different news. So the main thing is, number one, it address my needs, or the improvement that I want to make is information at a detailed level, right? Not just high level aggregated information. And we collect fine-grained information not only from a single source, but we collect from different sources. So we gather volunteers that read, they're able to read Chinese, and they're able to read Bahasa, which is a Malay language, a national language in Malaysia. And of course, we have people from Thailand, Vietnamese, Philippines, so all gathered to help us to get information and up-to-date numbers from different countries and or their ministries. And the second one is the ability to keep track of the historical data. Now, although JHU also published their data set, but that the way the data that they publish is in fact a little bit I would say that the data that they publish is not consistent, right? You can take it and use it. It's all in the CSV form. For those of you who are not familiar with technical term, it's like a comma separated value files. So you can use those files, you can download and open it in Excel, but if you want to make good use of it, yeah, it actually requires a lot more work rather than just click and download the CSV file. So that's the second thing that I want to do. And last but not least is the news articles of following story development. Now, this has a lot to do with my background as well, because if you remember, I used to work in a media company called Fairfax Media, which is the number one competitor to news.com yeah, in Australia. So what I'm very familiar with is things like story development, helping editors to find interesting stories, helping editors to identify stories that people want to read using the technique called natural language processing. And this is the very first version that we design, and then we spend about 36 hours in total just to get everything set up, and then set up the database, set up the front end. So that was before Seng joined the team, right? So it does the job. Remember, this is a product. It's a minimum viable product, right? So the most important thing is the viability. And once Seng came on board, everything has changed. So this is the latest version of our CoronaTracker. It looks a lot nicer, a lot more elegant, yeah. And we also get sponsorship from AWS, Amazon Web Services. So we're able to do a lot more different things like server-side cachings, RDS, EC2, and yeah, we have a lot of different crawlers running behind the scene as well. So you can see that we have a very nice table that summarizes the cases in different countries. And of course, this is the live stats overview. Now, he also created a version that allowed you to embed the information on your own website as well. If you want to do it, we'll give you the link afterwards. But the coolest part is here, you are able to choose from different languages as well. So English, Bahasa, traditional Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Indonesian language. And we have a couple more different language now. I think we have Italian and also German language, because yeah, the outbreak in those places seems a lot more severe now. Okay, and so this is the key statistics. Now, I'm very impressed with the way that Seng designed the entire architecture. Is we are serving this on I think on a small instance, yeah, on an AWS small instance, and we did in less than 2 months time, we have already served 2.1 million page views, and we have 250,000 unique users. So this is well, from the team perspective, right? From the CoronaTracker team perspective, we're very happy that we're able to build this project, launch it successfully, and help that many people. But from the reality side, is not something that worth celebrate. So I always tell them that this is a milestone, but not something that's worth a celebration, because is really not good. Yeah, but I'm glad that with the minimal setup, we're able to get something up and running in such a short time, and is working. Users are really using it. So every time, not too often, but if anything happens to the site, that we have some numbers issues or our database has issues, usually it's from the source that we have gathered the data, we crawl the data. So yeah, user will give us feedback within seconds. We'll just send us an inbox saying, hey, how come, yeah, why does the number looks odd, yeah, for example. All right, so I'll quickly go through the workflow that we adopt in terms of the data science project. So if you are familiar with data mining, software engineering, or any sort of project management methodology, right? This is a lot simpler and more lean approach to handle a data science project. So the first thing that we do is to gather data, right? It's called Awesome Framework. So the first step is actually obtain the data or gather the data from the relevant sources. The challenging part of CoronaTracker is that we have to gather sources from a lot of unstructured, semi-structured, and structured data. almost none of our data came in like in the form of we can consume it directly. But the data that we share now, right? This entire project is open source and publics are welcome to use our data. The data that we share now is all in API form, in JSON form, and if you convince us that you are using it for the proper good use, we can even give you access to this SQL server as well. And gathering the news articles, we have to overcome the different structure of the different news outlets, and also we have to understand the format of the HTML to extract those numbers and statistics from different websites. And the challenging part is also sometimes, for example, JHU or WeChat from China, Tencent, they will change their format without telling you. So you really have to keep an eye on what is going on. And the second thing is scrubbing data. So not all data that we collected are usable. Sometimes the news articles, people are complaining like, oh, this article is too political related, it's too right wing. And sometimes there are people will say like, you know, this is, for example, we at the very beginning we have a news article that's related to the sales of iPhone drops. I think the sales of iPhone or Samsung drop, and then because of coronavirus, and people just say, no, this has got nothing to do with coronavirus. So we have to do a lot of scrubbing behind the scene, and this part I would say I would love to automate it, but most of it is done manually. Yeah, if not semi manually. We pick up some keywords. And one thing that I would like to highlight is that people always talk about fake news, right? What we are trying to do here is not to battle fake news. You have more than enough information that you want to read. You have too much information, in fact. So why do we bother to give you more information to battle fake news, right? So what we really need to do is to provide up-to-date, genuine, verified information from trusted sources, so that you wouldn't waste your time reading something that might not be, you know, trustworthy, right? So that's the whole purpose of the news tracking part in CoronaTracker. We're not here to battle fake news, but we are here to help you to easily differentiate which one is a genuine news and which one is a fake news. And of course, we're not trying to compete with, you know, people who distributed information over WhatsApp. Yeah, that's a totally different problem. Yeah. And the next step is to explore data. So a lot of the time when we gather the data, they're all in different shapes, different formats, and sometimes the way that they label the location is different from us. The data domain range is different. So we really have to explore the data. And before we can actually build a model, we really need to understand the data. You need to understand what are the trends, what are the clusters, what are the different types of features that we can use, and what are the information that can help us to build our model, to explain our model better. And then last but not least is to explain the models and results. So most of the time we put it into analytics dashboard that you have seen on coronatracker.com. Right. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat panel. Yeah, Helena will capture them, and we'll do our best to answer it at the end of the webinar. All right. And let's take a look at the team now. When you have a project like this, right, the team formation is really important. At first, when I started, I was like, okay, fine, you know, let's keep things simple, just have a flat team. Yeah, everybody just works together. But the response is too overwhelming. We now have, I think, about 1,500 volunteers from all around the world. So we definitely have to look after each and everybody in terms of their time zone, in terms of their skill sets, and we need to group them into specific groups. So some people are handling the research, some people are handling the technical side. So for example, Hafiz, he's our lead data scientist. So any things related to analytics, database, this is the guy that you want to speak to. And Wei Seng, I'll leave it to him to introduce himself after this. And we used to have a mobile developer, but who is now jobless because Apple App Store and also Google Play Store they both have banned any application that's related to CoronaTracker unless it's from a government agencies or it's from a registered hospital. So we are not qualified in either of that section. So Shen is currently jobless because the mobile application that he built, it was really good. Right? We have a lot of downloads, but yep, we can't put them on the App Store anymore. So we're still looking for ways. But so if we happen to know anybody from Google, Apple, and they can help us with that, I'm more than happy to speak to them. The lead analyst, lead researcher Dominic is from Philippines. So later on, he will share with you our midterm plan. What was the ongoing research that we're doing, we're conducting, and also what the papers that we plan to publish. So if you're interested, you can also join his team. Yumi is our head of PR, public relations. So she handles all the media, make sure that they report us from the right angles. There was one that she got very upset because the news articles is about people who pretend that they are experts and know everything, but that article mentioned us, saying that we are not that type of application. So it's actually trusted site, but because of the way that the articles is reported, they associate us with sort of like the fake news side. Yeah, so she got a bit upset. And Marcus is our head of product, so he looked after the UI UX, and in particular what are the features that should be built first, right? People like I'm if you can see, right, I'm basically the idea guy. So I brought ideas to the table, and then I just bring together a team who believe in the visions, and we are working hard towards that. And we always have a lot of random ideas, and of course users, they always give you feedback, right? So Marcus is the guy that instead of a yes man, right, he's the no man. Yeah, everything when you tell him something, he said no, this is not what they really want. Yeah, they don't want a faster horse, but what they really want to do is this and that. So he always help us to prioritize what sort of features that we need to build. And last but not least, our another lead researcher, assistant professor from Dr. Faroza. She is from Japan. She's currently in Kyoto. So she handles all the research, picking the right directions and coordinating the researchers, and choosing the venue for us to publish, and also presenting our work too. All right, so some of you might be interested with the sort of money that you need to spend, right? In case if you want to be like a startup entrepreneur, this is actually a very good case study. Now, whether you are a small, medium enterprises, small, medium companies who are trying to digitalize your company by building a dashboard and then keeping track of unstructured data, unstructured text documents, right? This is actually a very good project to start with. Now, at least we open source the whole thing. I wish I have time to document everything, or vlog it, whatever. I just don't have time to do that. But the team has done a good job keeping track of the trails in the GitHub. So you can just log into to our Git and repositories to look at what is going on there. Yeah. So the infra cost, we have two AWS small instances. So it's about $38. We use a free version of the front end tool called Netlify. Wei Seng is an expert on this, so I will let him explain what is a Jamstack. So how he actually 100% decoupled the front end from the back end by using pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, a little bit of the framework, and combine it with a full API. And so that's why when when you log into coronatracker.com, right, you can see that the site look super fast. Yeah, it's super fast because he's using Jamstack. So any question you can ask him later on. And we do have an RDS database that's running. It costs us about $10 per month to store everything that you see. We have over 800 pages. We have close to 10,000 news articles that we have collected so far, and we have I can't remember exact number of data sources that we have collected that we need to crawl every day, but definitely more than 5 sources. And yeah, starting from 25th January, we have been collecting real-time data all the time. So I no longer call them hardware costs because they are basically just infrastructure costs, and technically there's no hardware involved, right? Everything runs on the cloud. Oh yeah, Dr. Faraza is here. She said hi. So maybe if you have any questions, you may ask her too. And the software that we use, yeah, I'm always the open source guy, right? So Python and Node.js, and then the front end, I say HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you don't have to worry about anything related to licensing or any of the software costs that you have to pay. It's free, absolutely free. Yeah, you can just download and install it. And if you ever require support of this, you can always Google them or go to websites like Stack Overflow. There's a strong community for these two particular language as well. So the total software cost is 0. Yeah, total software cost is 0. You didn't see it wrongly because every software that we use is open source. So you might be wondering, right? What is the most expensive cost here then? So the other day when I was presenting these to a group of Malaysians, we did a rough estimation like this. So yeah, you have to change it to your local currency because your the job markets might be different. So if you look at the positions, but I would say that the cost, let's say in San Francisco, a front-end developer is going to cost you about $5,000 per month at least, if not higher. Yeah, in some places, maybe for example, India, Indonesia or Vietnam, the price will be a little bit lower, but yeah, it wouldn't vary too much. But what you really need is a front-end developer, a back-end engineer, a data engineer, and a data scientist that helps you to, this is the smallest possible team or minimal viable team that you should have in order to drive a project like this. And although it takes us about 36 hours to build the first version, but we did take a couple of weeks to polish the product and make sure that it's user-friendly and it's addressing the pain points that our users want to, and to help them to achieve what they want to do. So this project will easily cost us at least 100,000 if we were to outsource it to any agency. So most of you here are by yourself, right? So I'll strongly encourage you to pick up any of the data science skills or any of the programming skills like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because everything down the road will be online and will be on the web anyway. So you really have to make sure that you are literate at that. And if you wait and see before you apply data analytics, right, you are wasting the opportunity cost, of course. Yeah. So before I end my presentation, I would like to share the 3 lessons I have learned while building CoronaTracker. First one is Mark Zuckerberg, if you remember, right, he always tell people that you need to move fast and break things. But he said this at the early stage of Facebook because number one, it's probably the only social media at that time that has the highest number of users, and people are so keen to migrate from other social media platform to Facebook, but he doesn't really know what's next for Facebook in terms of features, so he can do that. But for most people like us, if we already know where you want to head to, or there's too high of a risk to fail, right? Just move fast, but don't break things. Yeah, because breaking things is very costly. If you're on your own, right, you're building your own projects, side projects, just make sure that you be careful. All right, we broke things a couple of times, but that's not because of we move fast. That's because of accidents happens, or because of we did not look after our database security properly. Yeah, and then we accidentally lost some of the data. But we do have good practice to keep multiple backups or snapshots of our data, so we are fine. Yeah, we managed to get the site up and running within a couple of hours. Yeah, but when you have thousand over people behind you volunteering, and a couple of million, 250,000 users are waiting to use your site. Yeah, breaking things is not really a good idea. So move fast, but don't break things. Okay. A second thing is to gather the right people before the right requirements. I have a plan, I have a dream, I know what the final product, how I want it to look like. And yeah, but it is the team, right? Is Wei, Seng, Marcus that I've shown you earlier. They are the one that turns my ideas into a reality. So you really have to gather the right people. They'll tell you what to do, and you will be moving a lot faster, a lot quicker, and a lot steadier when you work with the right people. Yeah, gathering the requirements is very old school. That's because software engineering, and back then the uh, the variance is a lot less, right? You don't have too many fancy stuff, and your UI UX is pretty much the same thing. You don't even have different screen sizes. Come on, you only have one monitor. Yeah, nowadays people have multiple monitors, and they have different screen sizes, and they have different orientations as well. Yeah, so there's something that you need to worry about later on. Yeah, we get the right people, and then you worry with them together. And last but not least, my favorite quote is start small, think big, and then scale fast. When I started, I start small, and I didn't really think that big. All right, I think a little bit big, but not that big. Yeah. But when Dominic joined the team, right, he said, why don't you just aim for something that is ultimate goal, say WHO, right? We are doing a great work. When I started, I was thinking like a information tool. Yeah, not just a dashboard, right? The next level dashboard with all those analytics, unstructured text, natural language processing, but it's more like an information tool that handles, sorry, I don't handle, that provides articles related to coronavirus on end-to-end basis. But that's about it. Yeah. But Dominic shared with us that this is actually a public crisis response systems that every country should have it in place and work together with WHO to pull all the right data, all the different external data sources, so that we can detect a disease or outbreak like this at its earliest time. And of course, scale fast. Yeah, don't make your application that's too bulky, too heavyweight, and dump all the unnecessary features there and slow things down. What we really need to do is to scale fast. It took us about a month, yeah, just to get the 1 million users, but 2 weeks to get another million. Yeah, so that's how I would say how amazing, right? When you get the team right, and also you know that you're working on the right minimum viable product. Okay, thank you very much for listening to my presentations. And I would like to say a big thank you to everybody who has contributed to the CoronaTracker projects, especially these 7 people that I've shown you right there. They're my dearest division leaders. Without them, CoronaTracker wouldn't be what it is today. Um, Sadly, I would say that we are currently working on phase 2, and based on our prediction or our mathematical model, yeah, phase 3 is coming very soon. So we need to buck up and keep on working with this. And all we need is your support. And thank you very much. Over to you, Helena.
Thank you, Dr. Lau, Cher Han, and thank you for this third presentation about how the project started, the challenges, possibilities, and everything you're looking forward to and working towards. And I just want to quickly share this. It was so good. The 3 points: move fast, don't break things, gather the right people before the requirements, start small, think big, scale fast. This was amazing. So our next speaker is Seng. He is the lead full stack engineer of CoronaTracker. He's also full stack developer at Red Airship, and he will be giving us a presentation about the architecture and the tech stack of the project. So a very warm welcome to Wei Seng Tang. Are you here, Wei Seng? Are you ready?
Yes.
Hi.
I can't share my screen.
Let me have a look and help you.
Okay.
Sorry, I think you can now.
Yeah, and I think it will be fine now.
Okay.
Let me see if I can help you. I think you can see now. It should be fine when Dr. Cher Han has stopped his screen sharing. And thank you so much to everyone participating today. In the meantime, while we're waiting for Wei Santan to just get up to speed and share there's the presentation. Thank you so much for adding your questions in the chat as well. And now over to you, Wei Santan. Go ahead.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Is it correct? Hello, everyone. So I'm Seng. So today I will be presenting to you about the architecture and the text that we use for the CoronaTracker project. I have 8 years of experience in software development, do both front end and back end. And I'm born in Johor, Malaysia. I'm currently working in Singapore, and it's just across the causeway. And Singapore at one point is the country with the most confirmed cases outside of China, at the start of the coronavirus disease. So I'm happy to join the team to work on this project. Yeah. So today I will be presenting to you about the architecture, the web scraper that we use to get data, the back end and the front end, and some of the collaboration tools we use to make this project. So a CoronaTracker is built with this decoupled architecture, which means that the back end and front end systems are separated, and the two systems communicate via the JSON API. So the decoupled architecture provides a few advantages. The code are modular, so bugs are isolated, and it's a lot easier to manage scalability. It also allows us to transform it to microservice architecture. So if you want to contribute, you can write a small service on your own, and then it can be integrated into the entire system easily. Okay. So this is the architecture diagram for the backend. We have two AWS EC2 instances, which is the orange box. The first one on the left hosts the EngineerWei Express.js, which is the backend application code that we use. On the right, we have an instance to run the scrapers. Both of them are connected to the database, Amazon RDS, the blue color box in the middle. And then we also have a Redis cache set up for performance improvement. And there are some other services that connected directly to the database. Yeah. Okay. So the most important things for CoronaTracker to be successful is data. So in order to get data, we have to use a lot of web scrapers to scrape data from different sources. So all these scrapers are written in Python, and they are run via the cron job, which is a scheduled job. They are configured to run every 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. So some of the sources includes JSU official data for the statistics for each country, which on the right is a screenshot on the CoronaTracker homepage. List down all the different countries, the number of confirmed cases, recover and death cases. The web scraper also scrapes from curated news sites. So we have a Google Sheet to maintain a list of news sites that we scrape from. The news articles are from different of each country in the different languages. So you can see English. Only we have quite a lot of languages. If you want to contribute, you can also write a scripter for the news sites, official news sites in your country, or you can provide us with the link to the official news sites. Then we are happy to help you to script the data, and the news article will appear on the CoronaTracker.com. Next one is so one of the contributor actually write a scripter for travel alert information from IATA, International Air Transport Associations, and then we make it easier for user to filter by the country. So if need to travel to some country, you can actually use this to check what's the recommended, what's the regulation, things like that. So this is also on our website, the travel alert page. Okay, next is the web server. So web server hosts our backend application code. Here's the link api.coronatracker.com. It's our API endpoint. It shows the API documentation. It's running on it's written using the express.js, which is a Node.js web application framework written in JavaScript. So it's minimal and flexible, and it provides a lot of utilities, functions, middleware, plugins. So it's very quick and easy to bootstrap the entire backend. And this express.js sits behind the reverse proxy for using EngineerWei, which is the popular reverse proxy. Then for database, we use MySQL or MySQL, and we use AWS RDS, Amazon Relational Database Service. So the purpose of the database is to store data. So some of the most important data we store are the country statistics, the news articles, and the travel alerts. So we actually store country statistics scraped by the web scraper every 15 minutes. So we have a time series of the data. Next is caching. We use AWS Elastic Cache. The underlying technology is Redis. So some of the configuration, the cache key is by URL, and the cache expiry time is 5 minutes. So what this means is that if you visit the same URL within the 5 minutes, you actually get the cache copy. So this greatly helps to reduce the load on database and make the whole system more performant. Okay, now we'll talk about the front end. So www.coronatracker.com is the front end, which I believe you have visited. It's initially written on Vue.js. This is one of the popular JavaScript framework out there. We chose Vue.js because it's more beginner friendly compared to the other more popular JavaScript frameworks such as React, Angular. Vue.js is easiest to pick up. So after some time, we use the Nuts.js framework to get the benefit of generating static pages for SEO. Yeah. So our code repository is hosted on GitHub, and then we use Netlify, which is a service that we use it for the CI/CD, which stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment, and also for the hosting. So our workflow is, after we write the code, then tested everything working, we can push the code to the GitHub repository. Then the Netlify will be notified and build the source code and automatically deployed to and host the website. So this actually helps us a lot on the deployment part, so we don't have to do anything, it's all automated. So one interesting thing is this Netlify, we are using the free tier. So even though we have 2 million page views now, so in February we only use about 75% of the bandwidth in the free tier, so they are pretty generous. So if you have any static site to host, you can consider using this service. Some other services that we use to make our process easier is this Shitty or Shitty. So basically what it does is to transform a Google Sheet to API. So we make use of this feature. Provides us an easy way to update the data. So we use this to rather creative solution to allow us to override statistics for a specific country. So what happened is, for example, the government just released a news that there are new confirmed cases for a specific country. But because a web scraper, we scrape data from the different sources, those sources haven't updated their data. So we can use the Google Sheet to manually update, and it will be displayed on the front end. So this allows us to have a manual way to override the static data. So we also use Google Sheets to keep track of the hospitals and healthcare providers. So these are the screenshot. On the left, we have the Google Sheet, and on the right is what is displayed on the website. So this actually allows us to crowdsource data collection. So you can actually get access to the Google Sheet, then you can input relevant screening centers for your country, and then you will be reflected on the website. So another services, this one written by one of our contributor, is it's a sort of like a admin panel to allow us to unpublish news articles that could be fake or dodged. So sometimes web scraper scrape some news that are not supposed to be there, so we can actually go and turn it off, and so it will be unpublished. And there's also a panel to monitor the scraper status, so we can see whether the scraper is still running actively. Okay, next so here are some of the collaboration tools that we use. So we use Trello for feature and task management. So contributors or volunteers can suggest new ideas by adding a card, and then we can manage who is doing what by assign the person, attach the person to the card. Then we also use Slack, which stands for Searchable Log of All Conversation and Knowledge. So this is our communication tools for document sharing, etc. And we are in the working group. And then last is the Google Sheet. Yeah, so it actually allows us to crowdsource data collection. So currently, the new feature we are working on is localization. So we are actually crowdsource for people to provide translations in their own language. So on the right, you can see the Google Sheet have English, Bahasa Melayu, Chinese, and on the right, there are a few more columns for different languages. So if you like, you can also contribute by providing translation for your home country. And so all the source codes are open source, and here are the links to the repositories on the GitHub. So welcome to join and contribute. And I would like to thank some of the early and core contributors in the team. Here are the list. So there are many more, is all checked in the Google Sheet. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seng, for giving us a full insight into the tech stack, and you can look forward to a lot of questions later on during the Q&A. So now we have come to our last speaker for today. It's Dominic Ligot. He is the lead analyst of CoronaTracker. Dominic is also Chief Technology Officer at Seralytics. I hope I pronounced it right. And he will be giving us a presentation about the CoronaTracker research project. So a very warm welcome to Dominic Ligot. Dominic, are you with us? Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, just sharing. Okay. So I'm the last cab on the track before we do questions. I'm going to be talking about the research group. It's actually kind of the newest of the groups within the CoronaTracker. But I think it's, as Dr. Lau said, kind of the natural evolution. Can you hear my voice? Is it okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, perfect. All right, so just a little bit about me. So I'm from the Philippines, and let me just get rid of this window. Right, and I'm a founder of a company called Seralytics Research Services, and we're a data company. But I guess to distinguish ourselves from many analytics providers out there, we focus solely on social impact projects. So we look at public health, we look at education, and very recently, we're also looking at human rights and democracy, which is interesting. My background is actually, I'm in the education sector. So I'm a lecturer, founded a master's degree with the University of Asia Pacific. So in the Philippines, analytics is just about to boom as a kind of a career path. So I'm a big advocate of that. I also co-founded the Analytics Association of the Philippines. Previously, I worked in a data company, Teradata Corporation, as the Asia Pacific lead for data science. And before that, I was actually a banker for a big chunk of my career. It's about 14 years in banking. My most recent banking role, I was the head of global risk analytics in Australia, New Zealand Bank for the Asia Pacific region. Very recently, so given that corporate background, I'm actually really into social impact, and we kicked it off in 2019 by winning a couple of hackathons. So we bagged the Southeast Asian Grand Prize for Troglodyte, which is a hackathon to detect fake news. And right now we're actually working with NASA on a dengue prediction application, which we also won the global prize for. And actually this references what Dr. Lau said. One of our target partners for this project is WHO. And I think CoronaTracker is very much within WHO's radar, because we've been talking to them about disease surveillance. And it's more than just the medical side. It's really, as Dr. Lau said, the communication side. So I think it's very consistent, and which is why when I heard about the CoronaTracker and was invited to collaborate, I didn't, waste the opportunity. I'm also kind of the non-Malaysian in most of the meetings, so I'm trying to learn a little bit of Malaysian myself, picking up the conversations from Dr. Lau and team. Okay, so just jumping to its agenda, I'm just going to share the objectives of the research group, current research threads, projects, some of the work in progress stuff, and also invite everyone to contribute. Unlike the kind of the engineering talk, some of the stuff here will be high level, because at the moment we're working on a couple of papers. So obviously there's a little bit of confidentiality involved. However, if in line with what Dr. Lau Seng said, we're open to actually collaborate with anyone who wants to collaborate. I'm going to be listing down a couple of topics and skills that we really need to push some of these research papers forward. So if you're up for it, we'll be happy to have you, and then talk about the research team. So a little bit of history. When I first jumped into collaborate with the group, I was working with Hafiz, who's the head of the analytics. And I just volunteered to create another repository for all of the analysis. So they were already looking at data visualization and applications. And I was saying, what about analyzing the data there? And they said, well, that's still a work in progress. If you want to jump in, contribute there, why don't you fire up a repository? So that's how it actually started. But then towards kind of the middle of, as the CoronaTracker was evolving, and with the, I guess, the addition of Dr. Feroza Amira, who's my boss in this group, she's the lead researcher, we just finally decided to get some of the work that was on the repository and move to make it a proper research project. So first objective is we really just want to understand the coronavirus, and just to differentiate this from some of the other work out there, the goal is to educate the public. So we're approaching this from the perspective of we're public health practitioners. What do we do to bridge the understanding? Because coronavirus is still a very technical topic. We need to know how that works. We want to provide insights at the same time on health response, communications. We want to forecast the spread. Everyone's trying to do this as well. It's a work in progress for many researchers. But most importantly, we want to provide scenarios without inducing panics. And that's the most important part. Obviously, when you do research, you're going to do some predictions. Some of those predictions may look bad. And if we're not careful about this, it can also be the start of disinformation. And we want to fight that. We want to make sure we don't start the fake news. But at the same time, we can use the data that we have to also, in a way, identify the fake news. And this can also be the topic of future research. So just quickly, there's actually 4 main groups on the research thread. There's a lot of work on data visualization. A lot of this is already being covered by Hafiz and the application team, but we're borrowing from their work in terms of just plotting out the spread of the virus, mapping it visualizations wise. A lot of work now is going into the forecasting and simulation group. I'm also actively part of this. Basically looking at whatever data we have on ground and just trying to see, is the disease, the epidemic speeding up, slowing down, or are there areas that we're missing? One challenge we have here is we're highly dependent on the disclosure of various governments of the data. So occasionally we see a big jump like what we saw in China a couple of weeks ago, and some of the countries that previously had low infection rates suddenly jump. So that's part of the problem. How do you then forecast data that's not predictable? And yeah, that's what also makes it interesting. There's some work going on in terms of sentiment analysis. Obviously, when you're looking at public health response, there's a lot of chatter on mainstream media, social media, and we need to understand the topics that are coming out here as a way of also not just understanding what's trending, but also isolating what's news and what's not really news, what's opinion. And this can be valuable later for public health and even WHO in understanding as an epidemic spreads, there's also an information epidemic that goes on. And I keep telling everyone, coronavirus is very special because we haven't had a major pandemic during the time of social media. I mean, if you think about SARS and some of the previous outbreaks, Ebola, those occurred way before Facebook and Twitter were popular. So this is interesting. We really need to understand how information spreads today as the virus spreads. And I think we're front and center in gathering all this information. Later, we also want to understand the economic impact of the virus. This is still obviously, we need to see how this will progress. And at the same time, we're seeing some early indications of it. Flights are getting canceled, factories are getting closed, people are starting to work from home. And that's got to have a downstream impact as well on the economies of the countries involved. And now it's a global phenomenon, and that's worthy of a research as well. In addition to the 4 threads, a big part of the research focuses on what we call the SEIR, S-E-I-R model. This is not new. It's already quite popular in mapping epidemics. SEIR, just to briefly explain, is a way of mapping numbers coming out of reports. So the S is the susceptible compartment. So this is like the total population at risk, anyone who could be infected. The E are the exposed cohort. These are the ones who have already been exposed to the infection but may not be showing any symptoms. The I is obviously the ones who are sick, the infectious cohort. And then the R, you can call it recovered or removed, because this can also include the mortalities from the population. So these are the ones who will no longer be infectious. Either they've been cured, they're now immune, or they've already died and they won't be able to cause further damage. The key figure factors here, without getting into too much of the math, are the conversion rates. We have infection rates, we have incubation rates, and we also have recovery rates. And that's where a lot of work is going on in the research group. That's really the secret. If we can map this and forecast this accurately, then we have a good model. Other factors we're also considering is obviously transportation networks will play a big role, and we're only starting to look at this information. The challenge here is finding data that we can use. There's not a lot of up-to-date data on flight paths that we have. Some of the papers that we've seen published recently, we're using data as old as 2000, so like 20-year-old flight paths, which may not be reliable. But what we're seeing in the news is obviously disease travels by plane and by land, and understanding transportation networks will be key in figuring out how the virus works. Demographics will also later be useful. We don't see a lot of this right now because the health ministries are still gathering information, but this little table here came from an early report from WHO when they sent some researchers to Wuhan. And it's already showing early on that age plays a factor in the fatalities, which also may help explain why some countries are getting infected and why others are taking time, potentially because of their population demographics. And lastly, going back to the discussion on fake news, CoronaTracker started out as an information portal, as a news portal, and that's data that we can analyze. We want to understand what topics are indicative of virus spread. And actually, we've had some experience on this in the work I've done in dengue, and also inspired with some work that Google did. It's already been proven in many situations that when people start searching for a disease online and we start talking about it, it's also an early indicator that there's an epidemic going on. But it's not exactly 1:1, so we also need to understand that. So that's some of the big topics that we need to understand. What we purposely have avoided so far is, so this is all publicly disclosed information. So that's one thing to make clear. We're not getting into any research on the genome of coronavirus. We don't think we're in a position to do that, nor do we have any reliable data to kind of understand that. Although it would be interesting later to kind of compare research on really the genomics, the epidemiology of the disease. So we're focusing solely on data that we could obtain publicly, and also the data that we have on the CoronaTracker as a way of providing insight. And the goal is really to influence public health policy, not just on a local level, maybe on a global level. So that's our goal. Okay, so how to contribute? Please, if you haven't joined us, you can message us via our public Telegram group. So that's the link. And I just want to be prescriptive. We need more people to do research. So if you're into epidemiology, if you have experience with SEIR models, please join us. If you're really good at math, there's no shortage of that here. So please join the research group. We need a lot of people who can do a lot of really mean calculations. And some of the less traditional analysis, like network analysis, sentiment analysis. As I said, and Dr. Lau echoed this cannot be the work of one person. We really need a lot of people joining us. And actually, at this point, there's actually more than a handful already of researchers. So, of course, apart from myself, our lead researchers, Dr. Feroza Mira, we have several really smart researchers. They come from various fields. Some of them are not even in the health sector. Some of them come from the commercial sector, but they have backgrounds in mathematics, statistics. Some of them have done thesis work in university, and this is bringing them back. A couple of our researchers are actually in a health sector context. We've got grad students, we've got professionals. So there's no minimum age requirement. As long as you can do math and you can maybe do a couple of calculations using data, please join us, and hopefully we make a big impact in helping the public understand the disease. So that's it. You can contact me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. At the same time, you can email me. And I'm always on the Telegram chats as well. So if you're there, if you want to ask a couple of questions, feel free to do so. So that's it from me. Happy to jump into the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for sharing the background of the research and everything around it. So if the team for CoronaTracker is ready, we can start with the Q&A. So from Dr. Lau, Cher Han, from the first section, we have a few questions. So
Sure.
The first question is the significant gap between number of cases not cured, number of deaths owing to lack of data about these cases seems to be across all countries?
So maybe Helena, you can paste the question in the group chat as well, so everybody can see that too.
Yes, I will make sure to do this.
Yeah, if that's okay.
Here is the question.
Yep. So is a significant gap between number of cases not cured, number of deaths owing to lack of data about these cases seems to be across all countries. Now, I don't think the deaths is something that people try to cover up. Like from what the data that we have gathered, and we have people from different countries as well giving us feedback. Those numbers are as accurate as we can get. The only thing is that personally, right, when we are looking at the project as well, the recovered and also the cure. So I think so far nobody is able to conclude that if you are tested again and then you are negative, and that considered that you are cured or you are recovered. So I think the best that we can do is to say that they are tested negatively after a period of time, and they can be discharged. But there are a couple of countries they are taking extra precautions on that as well. So, and I think that will lead to the next question. I think I saw one question that asked Dominic about how will that affect the model as well. Yeah. So these are some of the things that we're looking into.
Yeah, just to jump in on obviously the challenge of incomplete reporting, that's a given. And there's so many factors to consider, political factors, information factors. And I think if you're in the public health sector, it depends on where you sit. If you're kind of in the government, you obviously your hands will be tied in terms of disclosure. But if you're on the research side and maybe on the WHO side, that's part of the constraints that you have to consider in your modeling. As an epidemic develops, your model should consider the imperfect information. Like for example, the most clear-cut case was the China number that jumped about, I don't know how much, 10,000 cases in one day. You need to ensure that your model doesn't get too messy after you restate all those numbers. At the same time, once and eventually the epidemic will play itself out, then there's another model that you need to do after knowing all of the cases. Yeah, but just a long-winded answer to that's part of the challenge. Your model has to account for that, and that's why kind of as an early heads up, some of the modeling methods we're using right now involve a little bit of Monte Carlo modeling, for example, where you have to account for any random variation as much as possible, apart from the usual forecasting methods. So the framework, SEIR framework, is pretty general. Everyone's using that. But how you model the inputs into it, that's going to be the key in terms of how we do that, right? And again, answering the second question, are we looking for researchers? Yes, please come in, join us. You're free to do your own work as well. But I think as a group, if you also want to get published, this will be the best, one of the best ways to do it, because you have a group beside you, and we also have connections in terms of submitting these papers. So again, research is first mover advantage. Yeah.
So the next question is, if you can share, I'll post this in the chat as well. Can you share the AP key for the mobile app?
I think that should be a question for Seng, right?
It's a question for Xian, the guy who lost his job. We can contact him to see if he can share the APK. So he's the lead mobile developer. And then if you want the APK, you can maybe leave your email to us. Or
Thank you. So the next question is a little bit general, but it's if there will be a copy of this presentation later, and someone is asking for the slides as well, will you be able to share them? This is the question to everyone in the team. I think anyone can.
That's a question for you, actually, Helena.
Yeah, yeah. I can
That's a
definitely
question for
share.
you.
Yeah, I can definitely share the. If you want to share your slides, I can definitely share them openly. That would be absolutely fine for my part.
Yeah, I think we're more than happy to share. I think Seng and Dominic wouldn't mind, right? Yeah.
I guess if they're following our GitHubs, we should probably put it there. So it's the best way to collaborate.
Yeah, so probably we'll three of us will consolidate and then we'll pass either a link. I think we'll just put it on GitHub and then give the link to Helena.
That sounds great. And I will make sure to get the link out and post it everywhere, so you will be able to find it. I promise you. And then we have the next question. I'll post this as well in the chat. How do you manage data duplication? Multiple articles with more or less the same content, multiple data records of the same patient, no primary key ID. So who can, maybe this is for Seng or Dominic?
Yeah, I will answer question 1. So for articles, we track by 2 things: the URL, where we scrape the data from, and the title of the news article. So if there is duplicate, we just do an update instead of creating a new record.
Yeah, and I guess to add, Hafiz is managing the database for analytics as well. Our goal is really to capture whatever we see out there as is. But when we do the analysis for the research, duplications are obviously considered. We need to remove those. So there's a difference between doing your data preparation for the analysis part, where you need to consider that. But at the same time, we don't want to limit the data that we get from the wild. So understandably, there may be duplications, especially if you're using different news channels. Sometimes you just copy paste articles from each other. That's the reality. But when you do the analysis, we definitely consider the duplicates. So two different things. One is data engineering, one's the analysis.
Thank you, Dominic and Seng. And the next question is this architecture overview going to be available on GitHub? And this is from Seng, your presentation.
Yeah, I will put the link on the GitHub, link to the presentation slides.
Oh, I was muted, I'm sorry. So the next question is, are you planning any plans to use Kubernetes or Docker for each services in the future? This is for you as well, Seng.
Probably not. This will make the application more complicated and actually create friction for new contributors to join. Plan is to keep it as simple as possible for now. Until there's a need, then we might consider Kubernetes or Docker in the future.
And the next question was during your presentation, Dominic, how is the project management methodology? So maybe this is for the whole team to answer, or just you, Dominic.
Oh, you mean the research? Well, at this point, it's very straightforward. Dr. Feroza is the lead for research. She coordinates all the efforts, and we break it into smaller teams. If you remember, we had 4 teams: visualization team, simulation team, economic team, and sentiment team. So I'm personally on the simulation team, and then we do it in a very agile fashion. Now that some of the teams are edging towards paper-worthy findings, some of them are already drafting the papers at the same time, while the others are still doing further analysis. So it's still quite organic right now because we may have more members, and some members are dropping off, some members are coming in. At the end of the day, the people who are sticking around seem to be the ones who are committed to finish the papers, at least for research. So that's kind of how it's moving right now.
So we had a follow-up question to that. I meant PM for development. Maybe you can write a little bit more about that question, Noor, if you want to.
That should be Seng, right? Project management for development.
Yep.
So currently, most of us are volunteers. So we just use Trello and Slack. Trello to prioritize the prioritize the tasks that we should work on. So there's actually a voting system that you can vote. Once we decide what to work on, then we will announce on Slack and ask for anyone who is interested to take up the task. And then we assign the task in Trello to the person in charge. So roughly that's how it goes.
Thank you so much, Seng. And the next question was for you, Dominic, during your presentation. Where can we read more on the research, simulation, econ impact, etc.? Are they on GitHub?
Unfortunately, the research drafts are private at the moment. The papers that we may have used can be shared. Because there's quite a number of emerging papers already on coronavirus. If you want to understand how we're doing it, the best approach is to join the team so we can all discuss it.
And then we have another question. There seems to have been some report on patient either reinfected, tested positive after negative. How did this affect the prediction model? This was for you, Dominic, as well.
Yeah, so we saw that. And actually what we're seeing is the dynamics of the disease are still evolving. So it's really not a closed loop at the moment. All it does is really change the parameters. So if you remember from the talk, there's 3 major ones. We have infection rate, incubation rate, and I guess removal rate or recovery rate. And that's why we're testing several modeling approaches so that we try to capture as much of the variation as we can. But for example, I'll give you a very straightforward one. The way the numbers are behaving in China are slightly different from the way they're behaving outside China. So that's one complexity already. And we don't know yet why that's the case, but we need to be agnostic on the method rather than overcomplicating it. Yeah, but definitely that's one trend that we're seeing, is that there's a reinfection rate. So that affects the last parameter. Like when you say recovered or removed, in theory, they should not be able to infect new people, or it changes the way we add up the populations. So that's kind of the long-winded answer to that.
Thank you, Dominic. And the next question is also for you, or maybe for the whole team. I guess it was a question throughout your presentation. Are all contributors financially paid? I see there are hundreds, and the slide shows that the list of remuneration for certain roles. If yes, who are the main funders of this project?
I'll probably take this one. So all contributors, like Seng said, we are all volunteers, and the hundreds and the slideshow, we have about 1,000 over people. They consider volunteers, but majority of them, 80% of them are I would say they're just testers or observers. Basically, they just help us to pick out if there's anything major that we miss out or we have done something terribly wrong. So that's number one. And the slide shows that there's a list of remuneration for certain roles. So there's a market rate if somebody would like to build, or I'm trying to put a price tag for this project to show that how much it would cost if anybody would like to replicate something like this. If yes, who are the main funders of this project? Right now, my company and Dominic company, we bear some of the costs, but it's not much. So the main sponsors for this project is still Amazon Web Services, so AWS.
Thank you. And the next question is for Dominic. As regards contribution towards analytics, perhaps best that those of us interested get in touch with Dominic separately and work it out so as to avoid any duplication of work.
Yeah, of course. The moment so there's going to be, join the Telegram. You can always also add me on LinkedIn so we can then find a specific place for whatever you want to contribute. And as I mentioned earlier, there's 4 main threads. There's no reason why it can't grow, but again, we want to focus on delivering outputs as much as we can. So there have been areas of inquiry that we purposely avoided because we just don't have any control. Like we purposely avoided the genomics side of things. There's really nothing we can contribute at that point. But there's no reason why that can't be another inquiry. Transportation data is there. It's not updated, but if you have expertise in networks, that would be perfect. We can add you in. And again, going back to these models, all these prediction models, again, is just a fair estimate of whatever the data is as of that moment. It's not unlikely that in a month with more information, all these models are going to be wrong. So that's also something to consider. It's not about coming up with the perfect model, but one that can accommodate future changes. So, and again, it's going to be peer reviewed. So something that will survive a peer review is something you need to be ready for.
Thank you, Dominic. And this is a question for the whole team. What has been the most challenging technological issue for the team and the project?
I'll let Wei, Seng and Dominic to answer first. I have to think about it.
If I can, for research, it's not so much a tech issue, it's really a data issue, right? And without data, you have nothing. You don't have any research. At the same time, even with some of the data, sometimes, there are so many ways to model it. So it's really more a question of what question you really want to ask and for whom. And that's also why CoronaTracker has been very clear from the very beginning. Public health information is the key. It's not meant to be something that you use for other aspects of this disease. There are other tools for it, but in terms of managing information for the public and as an information portal. So I guess that's the key to also making a successful product. Very, very precise focus and collaboration. So for me, as much as possible, if we can get more information, the better. And again, another challenge is also the disinformation and the fake news. And even researchers fall for this. I mean, I don't want to make a big deal of it, but there have been papers published in the last month that are quite dubious if you think about it, and they play to conspiracy theories, but they got published, and one day they're probably going to get unpublished when someone debunks them, and that can make or break a career. So there's also an element of risk for putting stuff like this out, but otherwise, it's part of the challenge we face. We want to help people, and there's a risk to all of it.
Thank you, Dominic. And I think this question is for you, Dr. Lau, Cher Han. So what is the next step for the project that you would like to achieve? You talked a little bit about phase 2 and 3 before, and maybe you could just elaborate about this.
Sure. So right now, the immediate steps for the project is we're working on the language for our language selector for our user interface, so that we are able to switch between different languages and to reach out to a wider audience. And then also we are working on different requests from the users, like for example, different types of features, or they want us to make some sort of tweaking. Like the most recent one that we have made was to allow external sites to embed our data directly, for example. Yeah, so that will be our short-term plan. The mid-term plan is actually the academic research. So we expect that as soon as the situations is stabilized or things starts to converge, and then yeah, we will start to publish the results. We're actually submitting to different papers, and also we are planning to we are going to organize a datathon, but probably an online one. And yeah, that would be the middle stage, the midterm stage, I would say. And then the long-term game is just to hand this over to ultimately we would like to hand it to WHO, so we can not only we can just gather information that is directly related to coronavirus, we can extend it to other types of viruses, other types of epidemic, or even natural disaster, because this framework itself is very robust and flexible at the same time. So for example, if we were to look at things like flash flooding, or we want to look at things like dengue fever or H1N1 kind of influenza, we can definitely do that, as long as that is something you travel slower than informations. And yeah, that's something that we can do. And from a slightly technical point of view, the beauty of our site, like Dominic said, right, is not a dashboard. So most of the dashboard that you've seen out there is done by one person or two person at most. So we have so many smart brains together in the room, right? We can definitely do a lot better and take this to another level, like implement a framework and consolidate more data from external sources and get more countries to participate.
Thank you so much. And we have a question. Can you guys add a buy me a coffee button to the webpage? It would be good to directly give incentive to these awesome contributors. Would this be possible? Seng, maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, maybe some of the contributors prefer alcohol. I'm sure we can add the buy me a coffee button.
Sounds great. So if not anyone has another question, this is the last question for today. That is, how can I join the CoronaTracker team, and what contribution are you looking for? You have talked a little bit about this, but the follow-up question was also, can I join if I am a beginner and a student?
Actually, a couple of our researchers are grad school and students. So again, we don't restrict based on credentials or age, as long as you have the passion for this and you want to also make a contribution. If you are a student and you want to get maybe be part of a published paper, it is also a good opportunity. Or if you're looking for a way to add something to your credentials, you were part of an initiative. And as I was saying earlier, the data that we gather, it will survive the current virus, and there will be future research done on this. And that's actually one of the probably the underestimated value of doing something like this. It's very hard to find data. If you go look for older epidemics, Ebola, SARS, etc., you only have like the final reports. You don't have like the on the ground data. And I think that's hopefully something that we're changing with CoronaTracker. There's a need to just capture what we can, and it's only been possible like nowadays. A couple of years ago, this would not be possible. So the technologies are there, the databases are there. It's actually our duty to do this so that future generations of researchers will have something to do. So yeah.
So this is really using technology for good, hey? Really the best way to use your skills and knowledge that you have. So we have one more question actually. It's, are there any plans to do modeling at local country levels?
Yeah, I'll answer that. As long as the data is available. So I guess the best candidate for that right now is China, because they've got city level data. And what we're seeing is that there could be variations that even within China. As more countries start reporting granular information, it will be possible to do that. But I think one of the constraints that we're seeing is that there could be varying protocols in place. Ministries of health function generally the same. They want to wait for confirmation before they report, but the speed at which they confirm information can vary. So that's going to be a constant challenge. So we're really reliant on the local country teams. We don't have those yet in place. I mean, it's multinational. CoronaTracker is multinational right now, various people all over the place. But there will probably be a phase later where we set up specific teams for specific countries, depending on the availability of the information.
Thank you so much, Dominic. And I just wrote in the chat, if you have any more questions, just make sure to write them now before we wrap this up. I have also posted the links to the CoronaTracker website. It's the GitHub, the website, and the Facebook page as well, where you can get in touch with the team. So I want to say a huge thank you to this amazing team from CoronaTracker, Dr. Lau, Cher Han, Wei Seng and Dominic Ligot. Thank you so much for your presentations today. And I will make sure to post all the links in the People in Data Facebook page as well, so you can find them easily. And there will be a recorded version of this webinar. I will post this as well on the Facebook page. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you to each and every one who joined us today. Thank you to the amazing team for CoronaTracker. And I wish all of you a continuously amazing and wonderful Saturday. So goodbye, everyone, and take care. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.